Drive. So I was interested. I was kind of keeping tabs on Refn at that point. So I wanted to see what he did next. And yeah, I think I made a point to fast track this when it became available. And I just remembered being kind of like just sitting with my jaw dropped for 90 minutes. It just, between the colors and the way he tells the story, it's a brutal, pummeling film, and it's super violent. There's a lot of horrible things, totally horrible, committed by horrible people too. So, I just remembered kind of being taken on this weirdly philosophical, spiritual journey, but it happens to be jammed with these horrible characters and all of this horrible violence, but it's so brilliantly presented that you can't take your eyes off of it. It's a beautiful movie. Yeah.
This movie actually really helped me in my writing career because during 2013, I was working on a lot of film sets and I was traveling with a Comic-Con probably 15 times a year. So I was basically just writing when I could. So when I had the free time, I would write.
Sure.
And I had written reviews prior to this one, but I remember watching this movie and just going, I need to express something with this. I need to. I mean, you read it now and it's lacking commas. I haven't updated it. I should probably make it look better. But I felt like I tried to write. And so I think this really helped me as a writer because it got attention and it got shared and a lot of people liked it. And it really led me to really try to write as not opposed to, hey, I'm going to go to sleep in 10 minutes. So I'm going to try to write something just to have content. This really helped me write. And so I guess I look really fondly at this film.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of gave you like a boost in your confidence and your abilities. Yeah, that's cool.
And I felt, I sent the review to you. I felt a injustice about this movie because I had watched Valhalla Rising and Bronson prior to this. And I actually talked about Bronson with Sean. No, I'm not going to say that story. That's pretentious. I was on an extra on a movie set and I talked with an actor about it. It was really cool. So this was a long time ago, 2012 maybe? I don't know, 2011.
Okay.
But all right. I remember watching it and then I remember reading critics' reviews and I kind of just thought, okay, so Drive just came out. Yes, it was a big hit. It crossed over. It transcended the genre. It was bloody, brutal, but somehow the music, Gosling, Carey Mulligan, it somehow worked towards the mainstream. But when Only God Forgives comes out, people seem to have forgotten that Nicolas Winding Refn, the man who made Pusher, Valhalla Rising, and Bronson, made this film. And I just thought, okay, Drive's the outlier, but have you completely forgotten who this man is? If that makes sense. I wasn't surprised by any of it. It wasn't overly, dude, Drive, people's heads explode.
The scene in the elevator where he just keeps crunching that guy's face with his foot. I was like, geez, this movie didn't get, I'm serious. When I watch his stuff, I'm like, how does he maintain an R rating? Because it seems like this stuff is going beyond that, but I'm like, that's still pretty cool. Yeah.
That's a good question, but I don't know. I just thought, I was like, this is more, Only God Forgives is more accessible than Valhalla Rising.
Well, I wouldn't argue with that. Yeah.
And so I thought, wait, have people forgotten? What? It just was weird. It just felt, I don't know. As a young up-and-coming writer, I just thought, wait, all these people have watched his movies if they're serious about film, so why are they hating on this one? It just seems like maybe he was more, he lost his indie darling ways, and so then he made this one, and then they were expectations, I think, killed this film. And it is brutal, it is bleak, and I guess some people could say it's vapid, but for me it was everything but that.
No, I totally agree with you, Mark. Obviously, I wouldn't be talking about this movie if I didn't...
Why did you drag me on here, Mark?
I got to train from my fist fight. Come on, man. Why are you wasting my time? But I think maybe, because I think our memory's gotten a lot more selective now than it was even just in the 5 or 6 years ago it's been since Only God Forgives. I think maybe those critics who saw his early films and kind of saw the progression of his career probably looked at Drive and were like, okay, there's some, he's still playing with these art house tropes of kind of the man of few words, but he's got a good heart, but he can be driven to these violent extremes, but ultimately he just wants to protect this woman and her son. who've kind of fallen into a bad spot because of him. So there is some like redemptive stuff going on in that film that's a bit more palatable, I'd say, than in his other work.
Yeah.
He also didn't write that film. It was based off a novel, and it was adapted by Hossein Amini. So maybe that had something to do with it. It might have been different if Refn had just like written the script himself. But I think critics were probably like, "Oh, this is wonderful. This is like a step up for him. So how's he going to evolve this type of interesting mainstream work?" Because you're right, Mark. Drive did make a decent amount of money from what I remember, and I saw it in a multiplex. It wasn't like I had to go to a small indie theater to see it. It was playing everywhere when it came out. So I think like critics might have seen Drive and been all gaga about it, then see Only God Forgives and how Refn's kind of doubling down on the nihilism, and I don't want to say nihilism and cynicism, but doubling down on the bleakness kind of, whereas Drive, by comparison, even though it was brutal, it was still more approachable, and it had that, more redemptive arc going for it that's a bit more transparent and easily grasped. Anyway.
I found the final shot and air quotes redemption, or his punishment of Julian, far more fulfilling than in Drive.
Yeah.
I just, his mom is saying that people have cum dumpsters. His brother's a murderer. He's just, yeah. Go for it. Sorry.
No, I mean, early on, like one of his first lines that totally sets his character is, "I want to F a 14-year-old to a club owner." And he says it like there's nothing awful or wrong about it at all. And that's like, okay, I don't like you at all.
Yeah. They made him so unlikable. And then you have, in the beginning, Gosling was really nice to that kickboxer. You could see some warmness. He didn't kill the father who killed his brother. He didn't want the kid to die. And so he was capable of extreme violence. I don't know. I just saw, I don't know. In Drive, it just didn't, whatever, Scorpion the Frog, that kind of stuff. But I like this character a lot more. And I thought it was pretty interesting what Refn had to say, and I want to see what you think about this. In the documentary that they made about this, and in the commentary, Refn was talking about how after Drive, he wanted to kill that formula. He wanted to destroy it. He wanted to destroy the pleasure of creating. He wanted to create works when pure. He didn't want to repeat himself. He's like, we all want success, and that's why you destroy it. It's too easy. And that, like, to be easy is the chief enemy of creativity. And that's how Only God Forgives came out, which was, they shot for 6 months in Bangkok. And they didn't have much money. He and Ryan Gosling had to go to a screening of Drive, and they got paid in cash to go to it to further fund their shooting. They could not afford permits a lot of time when they were shooting on the street, so everything had to be quick. They shot in almost all on location inside of actual clubs. They went to the most interesting looking clubs so they didn't have to dress them. So they could add minimal production design. And every step of the way, this guy thought, hey, the relationship between Julian and May isn't working. This brother, Billy, is no character. Who is Chang? What is this? I'm not making something good. And so it's almost as if he revels in the insecurity and doubt. And he turned his back on momentum, and he went to Bangkok instead without a full script and shot this. Is that self-destructive, or is that actual pursuit of something higher than easy? Does that make sense?
Well, it's almost like kind of, I don't know if I would call it guerrilla filmmaking, but it's kind of like when you don't have it's like you're used to, in the Hollywood machine more so. It's just like everything is in place and everybody has a function kind of. Whereas this sounds like he just kind of wanted to more just kind of feel out this idea he had and kind of see where it went. And I mean, it speaks to his confidence as a filmmaker that he was able to render this in such a, you were saying how he didn't have a complete script, and I was like, geez, well, I mean, I'm impressed because everything seems so fully formed in Only God Forgives, kind of like, and even the characters, even though they don't talk a lot, you get a real sense of who they are. So it's really impressive. It's that synthesis of the actors and the technical end of things, because I listened to the commentary too, and I was genuinely surprised when he was like, oh yeah, we didn't have permits. And I was like, how are you getting these amazing shots of the street and everything, and just these open air settings? And he tells a story about paying off the cops.
Yeah, that was great.
To be able to do that. But I was just kind of impressed. It's just like, well, he didn't have any issue with paying off the cops to make his movie the way he wanted to. So
I thought it's really interesting in this one how he just kept talking about sex in regards to these characters too. We're not going to go too far into it, but when he beats the people up, he's saying he's sexually frustrated. He doesn't touch May with his hands, because he's so scared of his hands, or is that his inadequacy? He doesn't deserve her because in his eyes she is pure, so he doesn't want his hands to touch her.
Well, here's what I was thinking.
They do touch her, but in kind of a curtain type atmosphere, like something separates the two of them.
Well, and the way that scene, like in the club, is shot, it's almost like you're not sure what's really happening, and or if he's just imagining this, because we see him sitting, slouched in the booth, and he's staring at her from across the room, and then all of a sudden he's up next to the curtain, reaching his hand in very trepidatiously, but then he's back. Then I feel like he's back in the booth again before he beats up the two guys. So all that to say, I was thinking about the theme of emasculation and what masculinity is heavy throughout this movie. And I think emasculation plays a part in, Julian's kind of, I think his mom calls him submissive, or he's the baby, he's the weak one or the baby, and he gets, dressed down a lot, so to speak. So
she orders the food for him. Like she knows, come give me a hug. And she does all of that on purpose, though. I believe she is an evil woman.
Oh, she's totally controlling. Yeah.
And she just does that. Like the hug that she gives him is overly sexual. She kind of has her hand near him. Give your mother a kiss. So she kind of revels in that control with him. But then she wants to tell him he's weak when she's created him. And
the whole dinner scene, which is one of the most cringeworthy scenes I've ever seen, where she starts talking about the boy's penis sizes, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? It's like shouting it in your face, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, his is fine, but his brother's, oh. And I'm like, what is happening?
How old were they when you were still bathing them in the tub, for Pete's sake? Jeez.
And then I also love that the same music plays when he's talking with his mom the first time, and then when May is I guess pleasuring herself while he watches. So the musical cues by Cliff Martinez are they're not subtle, I'll tell you that, but they do. I don't know, this movie, all these people that boot it, I just think it creates this very interesting, thought-provoking feel to it.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that Ryan Gosling, or Julian, walks up to basically what would you say, maybe the god of the Old Testament, or a weird, walks up to a deity who can pull a sword from out of nowhere from his back. And
yes.
But what I like, though, is where his mom wants to do a drive-by shooting, right?
Yes.
And kill him. Yeah. Where his brother wants to destroy younger girl. He walks up to a god. He beats up two guys, first of all, and not afraid of them. Then he goes up to essentially, in air quotes, a god, and says, want to fight.
Yeah.
So I love that about this character. I'm not putting him on Mount Rushmore, obviously. But I just think this guy, he didn't want to be there. He was created a monster. He got there because he's killed his father with his own hands, because his mom obviously Macbethed him into it.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing, and I thought that was interesting late in the film when Crystal. It's one of the more pensive, calmer, quiet moments that the two of them have. It's after Julian's gotten his ass handed to him by Chang, and Crystal's like, I swore to you after your father I'd never ask it again, or something like that. So yeah, I was like, oh my, total Lady Macbeth vibes, totally awful. Yeah.
I don't think it was hubris that had him wanting to fight Chang. Do you?
Catharsis maybe. Just I need to get this out of me because I got so much pent up rage that I don't know what to do with. So what do I have to lose? I'll feel something even if I do get my ass handed to me, which he does. So,
and I like